Hello friends, today we are back with another article of the Hindu newspaper. This is not editorial, this is the article that I have picked from text and context. The Yesterday we have discussed about the another article related to climate, and today's editorial is not worth explaining. There is not much about anything about you related to UPSC or any other state PCS. So another today another way another editorial related to another article related to climate, and one of the my favorite topic, climate is as I said yesterday, climate never goes out of news, and it keep on coming in news every day. So editorial this editorial provide you insight about the climate, what is going around the world, or this climate debate is not new anything, like happening right now. Like people who started reading newspaper newly, they definitely feel that it is the very new topic and pressing topic. No, this climate change, this thing, like since the last centuries we are discussing about all these things, and all these phenomena happening like COP27. Every year this happen. 27 years it has started. We can say it has uh, 27 years. Every year it happen in one country or another country, since COP26 was in the United Kingdom. So what this article talks about, it will give you insight, and you can like in very deep insight, and how it provides data with the, it talks with the datas and insight, and why we should arrest the climate change, and what are the challenges and where we are failing. All these insights are useful in the mains as well as in the interview, and there are few datas which is definitely helpful in the prelims also. So we are going to discuss this. Please give us some feedback, like how can we improve. We are just now starting all this series about any important articles which is an important related to UPSC or state PCS. We will definitely share it on this channel. We will explain it, and you will see more improved version in the upcoming articles. So please give us the feedback. We are trying to improve it. We are trying to represent something new, innovative. So your feedback are very critical at this juncture. So I'm not going to read it line by line, just like I have read in yesterday's article, or I represented in yesterday. And so today I'm going to change my approach. How? I will explain whatever it is written in this article, will give you insight about all this article. If you want to read it, you can pause and read this article, or maybe most of you have already read about this in the newspaper. So what are the insight here? It is saying like COP27 is all about, what is the theme of COP27? It is theme about loss and damages. Like, they are asking for compensation against loss and damages. It is main agenda of COP27. So we are thinking that those who are new to the all this topic, why they are asking for compensation? Why developed nation will provide you money and all these supports to arrest the climate change? We, since we also affect as much as the developed nation, everyone will affect equally from the climate change. So things is, during during the industrial revolution, fruits of industrial revolution eaten by developed countries, those now developed country, we can say now developed country, at that time they were the front runner. Like we can say US, United Kingdom. India got independent in 1947. So till the 1947, most of the industrial revolution already had happened in the US and United Kingdom. They have taken raw material from the India and all those colonial countries, and they developed their own nations. They have looted so many resources from countries such as India and African nations. So historically, they have taken benefit of this industry revolution. So when the industries started in the western countries, so they obviously they polluted the environment. They have released the greenhouse gas emissions and all those things. So we are late starter. We are still in the developing countries, or we are still in the categories of developing countries. And what development requires, and why we cannot contribute more in this to arrest these climate changes, or why we are asking for the compensation from the other countries. Thing is, when we are the we what developing countries require to become a developed country, a developing countries, what a developing country is required to become a developed country, we we need to require many things like industries. We require industries, best infrastructure, energy, labor, many things. So all these come with some string attached. You cannot expand industries without investment, or you cannot run your industries without pollution. You cannot create new highway or any infrastructure for transportation without clearing field, or without cutting trees, or without causing pollutions. And a main thing is energy. So energy, what we required for energy, we required coal, gas, oil, everything that provide us energy. Energy is the main thing that countries decide that how a country is developed, or how it is, whether it is developing or underdeveloped, or it is developed country. So consumption of energy is one of the basic criteria for this decision. Say USA is consuming, like we can say that, um, USA per capita energy consumption is much more higher than the India. So US is the developed country. Why we don't have much energy consumption? Because we don't have that much capacity. We did not produce that much energy. Even the 100% of electrification is not possible in the India right now. So here it is discussing. So capita energy consumption is the mark of development, as we have already told you or discussed this thing. So to produce the energy, to give the energy to our industries, to provide the new startups, to set up a new startup, we need to supply them energy 24 into 7. To set up a new industries, we need to provide them the energy, like electricity, or many more things. So to produce the energy, India, right now India is producing 70% of its energy requirement from thermal coal plant. So thermal plant, that coal will definitely pollute the environment. So what is the critical issue behind all these things? So in the India, the requirement of energy is increasing very fast. We are still in the categories of developing country, but we are the fifth largest economy. We have so many population in the country, and we are growing very fast. So what growth required? Growth require infrastructure, growth require industries, growth require energy. So to produce the energy, definitely we need to set up new power plant, or we require so many coals and all other, we have so many vehicles in the countries. The vehicles will pollute the environment. Definitely it's going to pollute it. So why this compensation is critical? This what this editorial is saying, that why this compensation is critical and all those things. This editorial it is saying that the since between 19, like in the last century, last 19 and now, it is 120 years, we can say 100, within 120 years, developed countries have benefited from industrial development, which also led to greenhouse gas emissions. So developing countries were relatively late in starting out on economic development. They may be contributing to emission now, but that is a weak reason to ask them to stop economic development. It is saying that we cannot ask a developing country to develop this nation since it is emitting greenhouse gases or it is polluting climate. No, we cannot, because developing countries are late starters. They started late. They need the energy, they need the money, they need the investment to uplift their peoples from poverty, to improve the standard of life or living standard of their people. So they are saying that developed country that have already polluted so much in the climate, they have already emitted so much greenhouse gases in the climate, and now they have money. So provide your money, provide your technologies, provide your skills to the developing countries to reduce all these emissions. Let's say America have a technology, like they have a cutting edge technology to reduce the sulfur pollution of sulfur from the thermal power plant, or they can arrest the pollution from thermal power plant, or they can provide a new technology for coal washing, so that the pollutant get away from the coal, or the we can segregate the pollutant from all these things. So new technology will help to reduce the pollution. But how to get these new technology? Developing countries don't have capacity, don't have investment to invest in the cleaner energy and reduce the greenhouse gas emissions and let their people be in the poverty. No, we cannot do that. Developing countries cannot do that. That's why we are asking for the developed country to provide their technologies, to provide them investment, to provide the money to the developing countries, so that we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. We can arrest this climate changes, and since they have more money with them, this is also saying that the now challenges is how to decide who will provide how many money, or how much money is to whom, and what is the decisions criteria, how to decide that. So on a website, our world in data.org, this is website mentioned in this newspaper, that our world in data.org cited that the global carbon project to show that between 1751 and 2017, 47% of the CO2 emission came from the US and the European Union. In total, there are 29, just 29 countries have polluted 47% of the, have contributed to 47% of the CO2 emissions. Can you imagine? See, there are a lot of other emissions as well in the greenhouse gases, are not just about CO2, but for the understanding purposes, or for the easy to understand everyone, we are taking CO2 emissions, and we compare all other greenhouse gases with CO2. Like CO2, for the 100 year, how many years CO2 can stay for 100 year? Let's say carbon dioxide in the environment for the 100 year, how much it arrests the heat, or how much it warm the globe. So according to that calculation, we compare the other gases. We compare the other greenhouse gases, and with that comparison, we decide the how potential is the other, like chlorofluorocarbon. So when it is comes to the chloride, it is more potential than CO2. When it's come to nitrate, it is more potential to CO2, that can arrest the uh, heat within the globe, or they can warm this globe more frequently than CO2. So all these comparison, it is the another topic we will discuss in wherever we find in the next topic, or wherever we see that it is necessary to explain, we will explain all these things. But for as of now, we can consider that the whatever emissions we calculating over here, it is comes with the CO2. Like we calculate considering carbon dioxide in the mind. Okay, CO2 emissions came from the US. So how badly do our emission hurt? So what effect all these emissions have done to the this to the poor nations or all these things? It is saying that the USA United States over 1990 to 2014, in the last 20 till to 2020 2014, yani ki 1990 to 2014 caused losses that are concentrated around 1 to 2% of per capita GDP across nations in South Africa, South and Southeast Asia. So you might have thinking that how the USA alone can cause the 1 to 2% of per capita GDP damage to African and South American and Asian countries. Let's we understand this with an example. Say, a farmer in the rural Africa can claim that his country has not added to emission historically. And it is true, they are developing country or underdeveloped countries. They don't have so much thermal power plants, or they don't have so much vehicles or industries or any infrastructure project that can pollute the environment. So he says that my country have not contributed or attributed to the emissions historically. So still, still still the yield of my agriculture is decreasing. Yeah, since the USA and European Union and many developed countries have already emitted so many greenhouse gases in the environment, so that greenhouse gases, like in the yesterday's article we have discussed that already we have crossed the 1.1 degrees Celsius, already warmed the globe, what we had in the pre-industrial era, and now it is 1.5 degree more than that temperature of that time. So the increased temperature will melt the glaciers, will melt the ice, and that will raise the water level in the oceans, and that water may evaporate, and so many floods and heavy rains around the world, and that rain affect the agriculture around the world. And this is true, it is, we are connected with the globe, and no country left behind in this crisis. So this African farmer is seeking that we are not a historical emitter, but because of the US and Russia's industrialization, his agriculture yield are declining. So it is true. Or a urban worker in South America has to work without choice in unforgiving heat wave conditions caused by the developed world's emission of the past. And it is true, what developed nations has emitted in the past, we are the victim of their deed, we are victim of their emissions. That's why we are asking for the compensation and all these things. So now we are coming to the India. Sorry. So now we are coming to the India. How badly do their emissions hurt? So we have already discussed this, that from 1990s to 2014, US alone have contributed to 1 to 2% of the per capita GDP losses to the nations of other South Africa and all those. So what about India's emission? How much India emits? Now this is given inside you. These data can be asked in prelims, or you can mention in the mains as well. And these are important data, and they do not change frequently. You cannot expect that these data will change in next year. No, it will be for the next 5 to 7 year, or we can say 10 year. These data will not change much higher. So you can remember all this data, or you can use this data in your answer writing, or keep in mind for the prelims perspective. So it is saying that India among top 7 emitters. Who else are like six emitters? European Union. There are 27 countries in European Union, plus USA, Russia, China, Brazil, and Indonesia. So we are among the top 7 emitters, or we are of the greenhouse gases. So you might think that we are under top 7, so we are also contributing so much. So read the next. Seven plus international transport. Seven, we are top seven. Top seven. Who are the top seven? India plus European Union plus Indonesia, Brazil, China, Russia, and USA plus international transportation. International transportation includes the shipping and airlines and everything. All those accounted for 55% of global greenhouse gas emission in 2020. So 55% of global greenhouse emissions comes from the 7 plus international transportation. So collective, this is the figure given. It is not necessary to remember all this data. It is just idea that where this emission is coming from. So collectively G20, it is saying that collectively G20, group of 20 nations, like this summit is going on in the Bali in Indonesia right now. So G20 nations responsible for 75% of the global greenhouse gas emissions. Can you imagine? G20 members alone are responsible for 75% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And why not? Yes, they are responsible, since we are this G20 is the 80% of the GDP of the world, 80% of the population. So they are polluting. It is obvious to see all these data. So, to seek the economic development, greenhouse gas emissions are unavoidable, and this is true for all. We cannot avoid the greenhouse gas emission. How we can do best with the development and the climate? We need to take both simultaneously, seriously. Development is also necessary. Without development, we cannot flourish, or we cannot arrest the climate change, since we know that there is no loyalty in poverty. If we are poor, we cannot be loyal towards the environment. So we are putting in the context of the India's population. Its emissions are far lesser per head to other countries. So India's population, we can say it is 1.4 billion. 1.4 billion we have. In 2023, in 2023 we are going to be the world's largest population. We are crossing the China. Recently, this United Nations has put a report and said that India is going to be the world's largest population in the India. So we are the populous nation in the world. So this data says that the world's average per capita greenhouse gas emissions were 6.3 tons of CO2 equivalent. Again, we are I have already said that we will this emissions we will measure in the carbon dioxide only. So 6.3 ton of CO2 equivalent in 2020. So per head in 2020, we can say average of the world, global average emission is 6.3 tons of CO2. In 2023, I am responsible for 6.3 tons of carbon dioxide CO2 equivalent in the environment. You are responsible for 6.3 tons of it is world average. It is not in the concrete sense that yes, I have polluted environment of 6.3 ton. No, in many underdeveloped and developing countries are not releasing even 1 ton of per year per capita. So it is world average. So definitely some of the countries going to be pollute this environment very higher than the other countries, or very frequently. So in this, again, world average per capita greenhouse gas emission is 6.3 tons. So US is emitting 14 ton of CO2 equivalent in 2020. US 14, much higher than the world average. What is the world average? 6.3. US is emitting 14 ton of CO2 equivalent in 2020. Russia 13, much higher than the world average. China 9.7, again higher than the world average. But India is 2.4 ton of CO2 equivalent in 2020, which is much lesser than the world average, which remains far below the world average of 6.3 ton. What is the world average? 6.3. India is emitting 2.4. So it is far below than the world average. So we cannot or world cannot, or developed countries cannot say that the India is emitting much higher, or it must arrest its pollutions and all this, since we are per capita we are emitting far less than the other countries, or far less than the world average of the greenhouse gas emissions. So again again here, this is the conference of parties 27 is going on in the Egypt. So we are talking about the conference of parties 26 that held in the last year, like 12 months ago in Glasgow, UK. So in that conference of parties, India has pledged the net zero emission by 2070. So India said that we will reduce our emissions, or our emission going to be net zero by 27. Net zero does not mean that we will not pollute at all. Net zero means whatever we pollute, we will absorb it in this environment through the forest required carbon dioxide through the forest, through the any technology that absorb the greenhouse gases emissions, and they may scattering into the earth, or whatever technique we will use. So we pledge to net zero emission by 27, plus we pledge to generate 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030, and we have also pledged to raise the forest cover. We said that we will increase the forest cover, we will generate the 500 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030, and we will cut down our emissions to net zero by 2070. These were the what India has placed in the COP26. So India was responsible for the wording in COP20, COP26. There was agreement between all of the nations that we will do this or that, and like declaration last after when the closing ceremony happening, there were an agreement among all the nations that we will do this action by that time in the upcoming years and all those things. In that agreement, it was written that the phase out of the coal, India has changed the wording of that agreement on the coal. In the agreement on the coal, it was written that India has changed this text wording of that, changed from phase out to phase down. What this mean, phase out? In that agreement written that we will phase out the coal uses of the coal by this and that date, but India said no, wait, we cannot phase out. We are developing nations, our per capita emissions is much lesser than the what developed countries is using. We need energy, we need more and more power plant, we need more and more electricity, we need more and more infrastructure to support our industries, to support our startup, to support our young populations, and all those come with the pollution. We cannot invest money in that cleaner energy, and we going to complete phase out the coal. No, we can do is phase down. We can decrease the consumption of coal, we can decrease that uses of the coal with the time, but we cannot phase out simultaneously, since our population need the energy requirement, with the energy is growing very fast in India. So, and this reflect in countries the ground reality of large energy requirement. So India said, do not write phase out, it is changed to the phase down. And so I have already said that India have this 70% of energy requirement from thermal power, and thermal power uses the maximum of the thermal power uses the coal as a fuel. That's all from this editorial. Just give us feedback that you need to where we can improve, or what are the mistakes we are committing. So your feedback is crucial over here. So what are the relevant for pre in this editorial? What is the relevant from the prelims perspective? One thing you can say, the location of the COP27 and COP26, all those things, Egypt and Glasgow, all these. What are the theme of the all these? So theme of the conference of parties 26 was the compensation against loss and damages. and you can remember few of the data like what is the average global emissions of per capita global emissions. It is 6.3 tons of CO2 equivalent, and what is the India's 2.4, so all these what can be asked in the men's from this, no, what are the relevant stuff in the men's. So it can say that how effective is conference of parties of United Nations framework convention on climate changes to tackle the climate crisis. So how far it is succeeded or failed, or give your opinion or to your views, all those things. So you must evaluate all those things, and again here you can mention the data in the answer writing, like 6.3 ton is the global average emission, or US is emitting 14, and Russia is 13, China is 9.7, India's per capita carbon dioxide emission is 2.4, and all those things. Thank you for listening, guys. Thank you.